This was a very strong and provocative presentation. Are there questions, thoughts? Because this is, we haven't heard this. It's very strong.
From an accounting standpoint and from a fairness standpoint, obviously you would value the debt at a lower level because of the difference in the interest rates. To what extent does that make it more difficult to achieve the needed reforms within Greece? In other words, to what extent, on one hand, you want to be treated fairly, it needs to be consistent, but to what extent do you need to be able to demonstrate to the public that this is a very serious problem we need to solve it now in order to help you deal with some of the conditions that the European Union is placing? Yeah.
I understand very well your approach and your objection.
I'm not saying it's right.
Yes, I understand very well. Let me start from the other point of view. The political theory about the non-sustainability of the public debt, about the need of a new radical nominal haircut, is an argument based on the so-called theory of the victimization of the Greek people, because the problem is not the structural weakness of the Greek economy, our own responsibility. The problem is the bad character of our lenders, the non-readiness of the European Union to give us a new nominal haircut, but as you understand, for a debt held by governments, a new haircut, it's a fiscal and financial problem for every national parliament and also for every national budget. From this point of view, the parametric changes and the calculation of the debt in terms of present value is a win-win situation for us and for our European partners, because this is something achievable and possible without any internal institutional and constitutional problem for the other member states of the European Union and for the Eurozone, because we must take into consideration very important and severe constitutional obstacles, the jurisprudence of many constitutional courts, and the diffused social sensitivity about this type of operations. On the other hand, yes, another perception about the size of the public debt maybe is a bad way because the Greek society is very tired after 6 years of austerity measures and very strong efforts in order to achieve the fiscal targets and the primary surplus. And from this point of view, a new presentation, real and fair presentation of the Greek public debt maybe is a new opportunity for a more loose behavior. From this point of view, we must know that even in case of total and radical deletion of the Greek public debt, of annihilation, zero in nominal phase and in present value, this is a political and theoretical assumption. The total annihilation of the Greek public debt, even in the case of a total and radical annihilation, we have the obligation to deal with the famous problem of the total national competitiveness of the Greek economy. Even without debt, it's impossible for us to go ahead to achieve our targets regarding the competitiveness and the re-establishment of our equal dignity within the Eurozone and the European Union without radical structural changes concerning the national competitiveness.
Daniel?
Yeah. I wanted to make one remark which then leads to a question. We saw earlier the numbers about the interest burden in relationship to GDP, which is much higher for, let's say, Portugal or Italy, let's say, than Greece. And that is not a big concern for these countries. Now, why that difference? Let me focus on the comparison Italy-Greece. The key difference is that in the case of Greece, the debt is foreign debt, whereas in the case of Italy, to 80%, it's domestic debt. So imagine you wanted to do a PSI in Italy. Basically, you would have to get the Italian people to decide how they transfer some money from the left pocket to the right pocket. So the key issue for Greece is foreign debt. And now, in economic terms, you don't service foreign debt with GDP, but with exports, rather net exports. That means if you want to look at the capacity of Greece to service its debt, you shouldn't look at the debt to GDP ratio or what Paul does, the debt to government revenues, but debt or debt service to exports. That should be the basis of comparison. Now, exports are the Achilles heel of Greece, if I may say so. And therefore the question is, if you now take even your reduced, accounting-wise reduced debt service for Greece and compare it to export and potential export growth, do you still find it to be sustainable?
I start with your second remark. It's very difficult to talk seriously about exports during a period of capital controls. The capital controls is an extraordinary situation, and from this point of view, our first duty is to return as soon as possible in the normalcy without capital controls. Because without a real strong and viable banking system, without a letter of guarantee, without a national institution like Hermes in Germany, and with capital controls, it's not impossible to talk about exports and about national competitiveness. From this point of view, we have a lethal interconnection between the financial sector and the real economy. This is my...
Should you then talk with the creditors not about pensions, but about
Yes,
how Hermes
I understand very well, but I must be concrete and frank. From this point of view, I prefer to make the point with the existing situation of capital controls. Concerning the difference between Greece and Italy, yes, indeed, the Italian public debt is a domestic one, and our public debt is a foreign one, but a foreign but institutional one. The Greek public debt is a domestic but private, held by the private sector. This is the main difference. From this point of view, our situation is better than the Italian one. Because during a period of crisis, I prefer to deal with institutional creditors because I have the possibility to discuss and to negotiate about the next generation of parametric changes in order to downgrade the Greek public debt in terms of present value.
Handling everyone accepting the write-down or the net present value, whatever measure you want to use, net worth. What about how does that affect? Okay. How would handling the measurement of the Greek debt, letting Germany do what it wants to do, and Greece presenting this to the market, if that's fully accepted, how do you think that might affect the portfolio of the ECB if people began to truly consider the actual holdings of Greek government debt by the ECB? personally, I believe we can have central banks with losses, but how would the markets do that?
The total exposure of the Eurozone in Greece is now about 230 billion. The existing exposure of the ECB on Greek sovereign bonds is just 27 billion. I talk about the exposure of the portfolio of Greek sovereign bonds, not about the exposure through the financing of the Greek banking system, or about the exposure of the euro system through the ELA mechanism. To be very concrete, we talk about the portfolio, and the portfolio is now just 27%, just 27 billion, but with a specific clause according to the decision of the Eurogroup on the PSI-OSI of 2012. The euro system has the obligation to return to Greece the profits from this portfolio. This is part of the debt sustainability analysis of 2012. The exposure of the ECB through the Greek sovereign debts is a non-profit exposure.
Paul Kazarin.
The debt that the ESM.
Speak up, speak up.
Excuse me.
Loud.
From a technical point of view, the debt that is held, if I understand your question correctly, by either EFSF or ESM, which I think was your question. What about the debt that they hold, the Greek debt? That Greek debt is guaranteed by the member states. So because that debt, if you actually start reading the ESM's annual report, which I know you know,
Okay.
you will see that it's guaranteed, so it has no impact. So, Greece is entitled to do what it wants.
Yes, the
It has
guarantee.
no impact at all on their financial statements because it's guaranteed on a AAA basis
Okay.
by all the member states.
The guarantee, technically speaking, the guarantee by the member states is something critical for the ESM,
That's right.
not for the ECB, because the ECB, the bank, the central bank itself. Okay, because the case of the ESM is totally different. And we have to talk also about the so-called Finnish guarantee, which is a very good topic for a new seminar. If you remember this case of the Finnish guarantee before the granting of the second bailout program of Greece.
Best. Tom? Tom?
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. The entire discussion has been about one side of the equation, that is the troika side. You have been a politician in Greece for decades, and I think it would be useful if, very briefly, you could share with the folks here the politics. You don't have a negotiation if you don't have a government. You've had 4 or 5 elections in the last 4 or 5 years, and you have a fairly precarious situation now. So I know you could probably spend hours talking about this, but I think it would be useful if you might share some of the political realities that the Prime Minister and others have to deal with.
Thank you very much for this remark, but I prefer to avoid any purely political reference during this debate because it's not my mission abroad to reproduce the internal political debate. Just one remark. If the current government is ready to take tough decisions, clear and transparent decisions, and to pay a political cost like ours, we are ready to offer the necessary national consent. But the first precondition for a new atmosphere of political consensus and of national unity is to have a government with generous behavior ready to take non-conventional initiatives. From this point of view, my prediction, it's not very optimistic, but for historical reasons, my national duty before an international audience is to make the statement that I am always ready to participate a common national effort to end with the crisis and to re-establish the national dignity of Greece.
Anatol?
I have a technical question. Sorry if it sounds like an ignorant one. What discount rate are you using to calculate this net present value? Because if the net present value of this debt is so much smaller than the face value, this is presumably because you're using a higher discount rate than what is built into the debt contracts, or is there some other reason why the net present value is lower?
I repeat that for reasons of political credibility and in order to facilitate our communication, I prefer to take as frame of reference this German very conventional calculation according to the interest rates of the German bonds and according the parametric dimensions of the Greek public debt, for example, the unique grace period, the unique average duration of the whole debt, and the unique low level of interest rates, because the interest rates of the European part of the loan, which the big one, is just 0.8%. This is the real European interest. The high borrowing cost from the IMF is something impressive during a debate like this one, but the participation of the IMF is very limited because the big part of the loan is the European one.
The reason I asked my question, I think
Yes.
you answered it, is that my concern would be, let's imagine a situation in which Greece returned to complete creditworthiness and became a AAA borrower, whereby its internal market interest rate would become as low as Germany's. Wouldn't that mean that the net present value of the debt goes back up to the same as the face value?
No.
Do you see what I mean?
My answer is very, very simple and very easy. We must make the distinction between the present value of the debt and the whole country risk. The country risk is something totally different. A lower level of debt in present value is something very good, but not enough. If your question is about the country risk, I'm ready to open a new discussion, because we must discuss about many structural issues, and from this point of view, every serious department of analysis in every international investment bank is ready, as you know better than me, because you are a very famous global analyst, is ready to take into consideration many dimensions, parameters, and also stereotypes, feelings, assumptions without rational foundation. My own duty is to annihilate the non-rational elements of this global debate and to organize a more rational and fair global debate on the Greece case. This is my effort, and from this point of view, I express once again my warm thanks and my gratitude to Professor Sol and to other organizers and sponsors of this summit, because this is also for me a unique opportunity to discuss with you. And thank you very much for your questions.